Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prophet podcast, hosted by Craig Phillips and Jeff Torrey. Visit us at fantasyfootballprophet.com. And now your hosts, Craig and Jeff.
Welcome everyone to the Fantasy Football Prophet podcast. I'm Craig Phillips, joined as always by Jeff Torrey. And today I think we're going through our top 5 bounce back players for 2018. So we thought it was just going to be a relatively uneventful episode. Just give our top 5 list until about 15, 20 minutes ago, we got some pretty big news, I would say. Alex Smith has been traded to the Redskins. Jeff, what do you think about that?
The implications are pretty big on this one. It's not that we didn't know that Hoyer, that Cousins probably wasn't going to be with the Redskins, or that Alex Smith had a long tenure left with, KC. But I didn't necessarily see Smith going to the Redskins, especially this early. So right now we know for sure that Cousins needs a new home, and there is a couple great teams out there, which would make huge ripple effect on not only Cousins, but the wide receivers, especially if he goes to, and where do you think he's going to?
I really think it'll be Denver. That's where I think it's going to end up. There's maybe 2 other options. Arizona, I think, is the only other realistic option that he would want to go to. I guess you could people have thrown out Cleveland, people have thrown out the Jets, but I really think it's Denver or Arizona.
I did too.
And I think Denver's the most win now team out there. You can win right away, I think, with them if you get a good quarterback. So yeah, I think that's where he'd want to go.
If he goes to Denver, which I think they're the number 1 team too. I think he would want to go there, and I think that team would need someone like him. You have Demaryius Thomas. You have a bunch of weapons there. And I think those guys have been undervalued for the last couple of years because of the poor quarterback play. And, Cousins did fine this year. He did pretty well. He was a top 10 quarterback fantasy-wise. And he really didn't have a go-to guy. He didn't have a couple of them. And this, not only do they have Demaryius, but they have Emmanuel Sanders. I would love this. I would absolutely love Cousins to go there.
Yeah, me too. I think that's the perfect fit. And, I almost changed my top 5 bounce back players just as this trade went down. I thought about adding either Thomas or Sanders, but I didn't do it because, obviously it hasn't happened yet with Cousins, and we don't know that for sure, but that might be 2 players I look at next year, if this move does happen like I think it will. And I really think it'd be a good year for Thomas and probably Sanders too, but they're both going to be 30 years old, but I think that means they got 1 or 2, probably 2 good more years left in them, so I think it'll be fine. And they got a good running back too, really. C.J. Anderson's solid. Devontae Booker's solid. It's going to be a good team if Cousins goes there. Elway better do everything he can to get him. Or, if he went to Arizona, that's not terrible either. David Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, but I just feel like they don't obviously have the defense. So for fantasy-wise, that wouldn't be too terrible. I just think Denver's perfect.
Yeah, I think either way is good, but you have to admit Denver would just be, the option there is really, really, really great.
Actually, better than all those, I'd rather have him go to Jacksonville, but I think that Jacksonville's already made it known that they plan on bringing back Bortles. So I do think Cousins would be an upgrade there, but it's not going to happen. It sure looks like. All right, so with that, with Alex Smith, the Alex Smith part of it, I honestly don't think it really does anything for the Redskins' weapons. I think it kind of just, at this point, we don't really know with Pryor if he's going to be back there, if he'll do anything, but I don't really know if it does much to him. I don't know if I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, I'm not a complete Alex Smith hater, but I've also never seen him with a bad run game. And right now they don't have a traditional run game. Their wide receiving crew is kind of all over the place. You're hoping Doxson really develops. So Alex Smith is going to a place where I think he could really struggle. And I don't think that's necessarily because of him. I think, better quarterbacks, Cousins, have been there and struggled, more than he will. So I don't know. I don't really like the situation for him, but obviously he had to get out of Kansas City at some point, and you want to be a starter. There's only a few places you can go. I still think that he would have been better suited if he went to Arizona, but beggars can't be choosers, I guess.
And I think, does that solidify your selection as him? Was he your number 1 fall off player? You think that you're pretty confident in that yet?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think so.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's.
I mean, I don't like I said. I don't think Washington. Do you think he's going to be successful going there? I mean, maybe
he might be fine. He might be all right, but I mean, in reality, his weapons are just okay with Crowder and Doxson. They're not special, I don't feel like. All right. Well, how about we get into our top 5 bounce back players for 2018? We each listed 5 guys, so we'll go 5-1. I'm sure there's a little bit of overlap here. With the bounce back, there's probably a couple guys at least that we're going to overlap on, but these are guys that had poor seasons this year that I feel like are going to bounce back, have a great year. So how about we start with your number 5, Jeff?
All right. My number 5. I was going to say, I have one extra guy I wanted to put on here, but my number 5 is going to be Jay Ajayi. So number 33 as a running back, obviously goes from the Dolphins where he was not getting it done. We weren't sure what that was all about. Goes to a good team, the Eagles. They use him a little bit less, but he still looked really good. I think next year they utilize him a little more and his numbers come back. Maybe not top 10, but I think he'll be a guaranteed top 15 guy, and not anywhere in this 33 where he was such a disappointment.
I'm 100% agree. He's going to be up there, and actually he's going to show up on my list a little bit later. I'll wait to say where he is when I get to him, but I won't talk about him then. Talk about him now. I think he's going to be. I think he'll be a top 10, top 15 guy. I don't see them using LeGarrette Blount very much. It's just they haven't been able to completely turn it over to Jay Ajayi because he came in there in the middle of the season, but in the amount of time he's been there, and he's looked good. I think he's really looked good. Getting Carson Wentz back on with them next year, just a great offense. I think Jay Ajayi is going to have a pretty big year. And I don't know if he's going to be a steal, though, in drafts. I think a lot of people are going to think the same. I mean, what do you think? He's going to probably be at least top 15 ranked, I would say. We're not going to be...
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not going to be a surprise that people are expecting a bounce back from him. I feel like he's just kind of...
Yeah, and I think that's why he kind of... I know he's farther up on your list, but I think that's why he's 5 for me. Just because, you can kind of put it to a lot of different things. Just the trade and the team dynamics and the role he was playing because of the trade. So it wasn't because of his... Like he just played poorly. I don't think it was that. So that's also why I don't think it's going to be that big of a surprise, but it is. It would be a huge jump even if he went to 15. That'd be 18 spots.
That's true. Yeah, and he was quite a ways down there, so it'll be a bounce back for sure. And I think it'll be good. All right, so my number 5. Here's where I actually had about 3 different quarterbacks I wanted to get on my list. I only was going to put one, so I had to make a decision on which one would make my list. And I ended up picking the one that maybe is not as expected, but I went with Marcus Mariota.
Oh, wow.
New coach. I think I see the emergence of Corey Davis next year. That's where I'm banking on this, is I think Corey Davis is going to really start to stand out as a top receiver. And I think that's where Mariota is going to increase and be better. I think he's a better player than this. I mean, the reason why I think he has a better chance to improve maybe than some of the other guys down that were probably ranked around him is the fact that he only had, I believe, 13 touchdown passes this year. So he was able to rank right ahead of Derek Carr in the rankings this year. Derek Carr threw 22 touchdowns to Mariota's 13. So if Mariota can increase those touchdown passes, he's going to skyrocket because he does get some rushing numbers and he does get some rushing touchdowns. So that's why I think he's the good candidate there, because if he gets to 20 touchdown passes, 25 touchdown passes, I think he's going to make a big leap. So that's why I'm going with Marcus Mariota.
All right. Well, this is actually a good kind of run of quarterbacks for me as well. So I have a QB here, but it is not Marcus Mariota. I actually do believe that my number 4 will be Derek Carr.
And that's what Derek Carr was one of the other 2 that I was looking at.
And they're all kind of in this range. I'm assuming we're looking at the same people. And yeah, I kind of like the Mariota pick, but I like Carr better as a passer. And I think I watch Mariota and I feel like he struggles a lot more in that. But Derek Carr with the new coach, I believe that who they have around him right now, I think they can even improve on it. And you watch this guy, and I think part of it was a little bit of nagging injuries. A little bit was not all their players were kind of behind him. Amari Cooper really, really struggled. So I think this is a place for Derek Carr in what I believe was his third year.
Actually, I think is it his fourth season now, actually?
Fourth year. I think he'll take a big step in this one. I think we're looking at a relatively large jump where he was 18th. I think he has a legit chance to be in the top 10.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, Carr, he's only going to be, well, he'll turn 27. So he'll be 27 going into next year, which is, the quarterbacks aren't in their prime yet at 27. So he can definitely improve. Actually, this will be, I think, year 5 for him actually now, which is it really crazy to think. Yeah, this will be his 5th season coming up next year. So, wow. Yeah, right. It's kind of crazy, but and his season wasn't terrible. It was looked at bad because of, the record wasn't great, but just the expectations. But it's not like he completely fell off the map. He still had a 62% completion percentage, 34 or almost 3,500 yards, 22 touchdowns and 13 picks. That's not bad. It's not terrible. It's just kind of there. It doesn't take much to improve on that, really. So I could see an improvement. So because I'll go with my number 4 guy, who I think is going to bounce back and is going to help Derek Carr, is Amari Cooper. So Cooper was my number 4. So I do think this offense is just going to be better. And Amari Cooper's too talented to be as bad as he was this past season. So I can't see anything but having a big bounce back for just this offense as a whole. If they keep Crabtree around him too, all of them I think are going to be better. So Cooper is my number 4 because I just can't see Gruden not turning this thing around on offense. I think, he's supposed to be an offensive coach, isn't he? So he's a quarterback guy.
Yeah, I once again 100% agree. Amari Cooper actually makes my list a little farther up. Like you said, if you look at him just a year before this, he's there. He has all the talent in the world. I have no idea what happened with him, but I can't believe that. First of all, he's not going to see less snaps, and Gruden's going to come in there. I guarantee he's going to be his favorite toy because, who do you have? Crabtree, very, very reliable. He's a very good wide receiver. You have an aging Marshawn Lynch, and then you have obviously Derek Carr, who is going to be the franchise quarterback, and who is his best new shiny object to play with is the uber athletic Amari Cooper that just threw up such a bad year. He was 31st when everyone thought he was going to bust out. So, yeah, I absolutely believe it. I think Amari Cooper is going to be a huge improvement.
Yeah, and I really do think people have been spoiled by some of the receivers that have been so good, so young, because he's only going to be 24 years old next year. He's only 23 right now. Amari Cooper's 23 years old. He had 2 really good years, 1 down year. If you look at some of the stats of past players, I was even looking at Calvin Johnson's earlier. Calvin Johnson, through his first 4 seasons, he was a good wide receiver, but he wasn't what you think of Calvin Johnson today. So why can't Amari Cooper do that? I'm looking at Calvin Johnson in his 4th season, or his 3rd season was kind of a down, 67 catches, 984 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So if you're looking at a Calvin Johnson year in his 3rd year, he had a down year just like Cooper did. So people just, we get a little too, like the Odell Beckhams and those kind of players have really skewed it sometimes, I think. So I think Cooper's going to be great. I know he's going to have top 5 wide receiver seasons in the next few years. I don't know if it's this year for sure, but he'll have them coming up. So he was my number 4. So that puts you at number 3.
Yes, number 3. So my number 3 overall, once again, is another quarterback. And unbelievably, it is not Mariota. I actually went with Jameis Winston. He's probably the other guy you were thinking about too. I really tried hard to stay away from anyone that had major injuries. He did miss a few games. Obviously, that hurt him. But overall, he played the majority of the season. He kind of played through a shoulder injury. He has, with Deshaun Jackson and Mike Evans, I love them both. Bray and O.J. Howard as tight ends. If they shore up that run game a little bit, this guy has the makings for a huge year. And I really do think the injury played a big part in that. I think when you hurt your shoulder as a quarterback, to the point where he actually had to sit a few games in order to let it heal up. And he still ended the 20th, quarterback overall. He still ended up ahead of, Derek Carr and ahead of, not Derek Carr, but I believe Mariota. He was right in that kind of tightly packed quarterback group of young guys. So he has a pretty good young team around him. I think Jameis Winston is up for a pretty big year.
I 100% agree. Yeah, and he was the other guy I was looking at. And I think one of the reasons I think I didn't pick him is I had a feeling you would pick him. So I just wanted to get a little bit more variety. So we did get all three quarterbacks in. That worked. Didn't plan it, but it worked. But all three of these guys, Winston, Carr, Mariota, we all thought they were going to break out this year. Or this was going to be their big jump. And maybe it's just 1 year later. Maybe that's all it's going to be. But I can't see how that Winston is not successful. I can't see it. I mean, unless that team just continues to be as poor as they were this year, I just don't see it. I feel like they're too talented. And I think we'll see a big jump from him. I really think it's going to happen. And you know what? There's one crazy thing I was looking at here. So let me see if I pull the numbers up here. On Fantasy Football Calculator, which we did a lot of our mock drafts, Jameis isn't, people are drafting him early. They were for a while. At one point there, he was getting drafted. The other day, he was about the 6th quarterback off the board for that day, which is kind of crazy. And now he's now he's top 10, but so people aren't forgetting. He's not going to be necessarily easy to get next year. He's not going to be one of those guys that falls to the 15 range. I feel like he's going to be going up there close to 10, probably about the same as he did this past year. So I still think he's going to be a good pick, but that's why you wait, I think, on quarterbacks to get players like him.
Yeah. And I mean, really just to solidify it, he missed 3 games, and the two before that, I think he scored 3 points in each of them, just absolutely terrible, when they really knew okay, we have to just sit him, let him rest a little bit. He still came up with 3,500 yards and 19 touchdowns. I mean, you give him 5 extra games really in order to improve on those numbers. I mean, it's easy to see how quickly you could skyrocket.
I think I'm going to want Winston over probably a Jared Goff, but I know Jared Goff's most likely going to get drafted ahead of Winston, but I'm going to want Winston over Goff next year. That's one of those kind of players I'd lean towards him over Goff. I just know that's going to be a comparison, and I feel like Goff's going to be a little bit more higher rated for some reason, but I think Winston's a better option for me. I don't know about you.
Oh, I do too. And he's going to, absolutely. I mean, and Goff, completely kind of outdid himself from what my expectations were. But at the same time, they're not built around Goff. They're built around Gurley. And Jameis Winston is the guy. That is the person who has to carry them. And he is going to get a lot more opportunities to kind of throw the ball around than Goff will. So I think not only talent-wise, I think Jameis Winston is just ahead of him at the moment, but I think the opportunity is also much greater for Jameis Winston.
All right, so my number 3 is one of Jared Goff's wide receivers. So I'm not giving up. One more year, Jeff.
I already know. You're about to hurt me.
Sammy Watkins. Got one more year of Sammy Watkins. I didn't give up. He didn't defeat my spirits enough. One more year, Sammy Watkins. And the reason I think he's going to have a bounce back is, he was the 41st receiver this past year, which I really feel like he will bounce back from that. It's more of he gets a full offseason with Jared Goff. He gets a full offseason in that offense. I don't really think they used him as the number one option like he can be. I think he was more of a decoy, it felt like a lot. So I think he's going to have, I don't know how great it's going to be, if it's going to be, just top 15-ish, but I think he's going to be top 25, maybe, something around there. And I could see top 15. I think he's extremely talented player. I think he's better than Robert Woods, who is going to probably be drafted ahead of him. Robert Woods is probably a safer option by far, but I think Sammy Watkins still has that huge potential. And again, a young receiver, he still has plenty of time to get to his peak. He's only going to be 25 years old next year. He's extremely young yet. Going into his 5th season though, but it's been a weird. He's been hurt, traded. I do think though, if he stays with the Rams, which it looks like it'll happen, he's going to be a much better option. And I'm going to fall into this whole Sammy Watkins trap again and rank him too high when we get going on rankings and draft him in too many drafts and probably not be good for me. But hey, I think he's going to have a good bounce back.
I want to hate on this pick because I love to hate on Sammy Watkins just because it was kind of like a huge "I told you" kind of thing. I'll tell you this: I would still take Sammy Watkins over Robert Woods. They pretty much finished neck and neck, even though Robert Woods was much more involved in the offense. Honestly, the thing that does scare me about Sammy Watkins, first of all, he shouldn't have struggled near as much as he did. I do think as Goff gets better, obviously Sammy Watkins' numbers will, but he had a stretch that was ridiculous in the middle of the season that completely saved him. And he only had 39 receptions, 8 of them for touchdowns. Like, it was a huge percentage. But I do believe you can see it. Like, he was a home run threat. If they involve him anymore, I mean, there's no possible way that he should have ever less than 50, but definitely playing 15 games. Like, this guy should be an 80 catch wide receiver. So I don't know what to chalk it up to. I feel like we talk about this every single year. So at some point, I'm going to probably just completely give up on the guy. But I think he showed me enough where I think he will be the number one wide receiver on that team. I think they'll open up the offense passing-wise at least a bit. So I think he could improve on his numbers very, very dramatically. I don't know if that's going to skyrocket him up into where he's going to be worth drafting at where people will want to. But I can get behind your idea that, hey, this guy will definitely bounce back and have a much better year than this one. So I can get behind it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he'll be a good draft, I think.
And I just really don't think he's going to have a high price either. Because I believe when it comes down to it, I think Woods will be drafted ahead of him, and I think Cooper Kupp will be drafted ahead of him. So people love Cooper Kupp. So he was good too. So I think Watkins will be the 3rd wide receiver there at draft.
It's actually hard to believe, but Cooper Kupp actually outscored both Woods and Watkins somehow.
He was solid. He's going to probably be good. I think this could just be a good offense. So it is still, though, like you said, it's run through Todd Gurley. It's centered around Todd Gurley.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, so we are at your number 2.
Number 2, we don't have to talk about it ad nauseum because we already did, but my number 2 is Amari Cooper. That's how highly I think of him. And I realize talking about him right after I talk about Watkins probably sounds like I'm completely just choosing one of the same guy. But I think Amari Cooper is the real deal. And I think this one is just a sophomore slump, if you will. So not to talk about it any more than we have to, but Amari Cooper, number 2.
And then my number 2 is Jay, who we obviously already talked about too. So he's going to have I think a great season. There's nothing to it. And that's running back wise. I don't know about you. I looked through the running backs. He was about the only one too I could pick out of running backs. I don't know. I didn't have a good sense of having any bounce back candidates in the running back seat right now.
Nope, not at all. And once again, remember, there are people that were hurt for a significant amount of time. I might have already said it, but like, I know people are going to say, what about David Johnson? I didn't use him because he was hurt. He didn't have a bad year. He was just hurt. Same thing with Odell, Rodgers, Luck.
Exactly. So number 1, do we have the same number 1? Maybe, possibly.
I actually don't know.
I don't know. I have no idea who you got. Let's see. Who do you have? Who's your number 1?
Either that, if we don't have that, if we missed that badly. Anyway, for my number 1, I laugh because after I give the whole spiel about not getting hurt, this individual was not hurt, but the reason he was so bad was hurt. So mine was number 1 is T.Y. Hilton.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we don't have the same one. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah. So he was 24th overall. If Luck comes back, this guy once again will be he'll be a top 10, but if Luck is anything like he used to be, he's a possible top 5 guy. And you can see, you just saw him in the, Pro Bowl, looking as good as ever. He's so fast. He's a very, very good wide receiver. It was a travesty that they didn't have anyone that could have get him the ball this year. The fact that he was 24th actually speaks to how good he is because it was just terrible, terrible, terrible. He still had 4 games over 100 yards receiving. 3 for 150 or more. That's how good the guy is. So T.Y. Hilton, number 1 for me. huge bounce back year with luck.
And he finished, actually, he beat out Des Bryant. That's crazy.
I know. It's really embarrassing for Des and me.
Well, my number 1 is Mike Evans. So,
oh my God. Yeah, that's a great one, obviously. Number 20th. I don't know why he's not on my list, honestly. That's a good pick.
Well, there's a lot of good wide receiver candidates. Like, we got Cooper, got Hilton, you got Evans. I think all of them are going to be big bounce back players this year. So you can go with any of those guys. Hilton's great. I think like you said, I think with Luck, if Luck's there, Hilton's going to be terrific. I mean, he's going to be, I don't even think he's going to be a lot better than we expect, or what I think he could be better than like a Mike Evans, actually, just because Evans did get to play with his quarterback most of the year and it didn't happen. So, but Evans is too good. I really feel like this guy's too good. And it's not like 71 catches for 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns isn't terrible. It's not like you can do a lot worse than that. He got 1,000 yards. It's not bad. It's just not what we came to expect. He was supposed to put up, elite numbers, top 5 numbers. He's supposed to be, in Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Julio, those kind of players levels, and he just wasn't. And I think he's good enough, but then again, even though I put him number 1, I do worry because I feel like he drops the ball a lot, and it doesn't feel like that's really correcting itself after 3-4 seasons. So I worry about that a little bit, but I think him and Winston are going to get it going this year, and we'll see a much better season. He should get more about 90 catches and jump up to 1,300 yards and just be a top option again. But I think you can kind of get him at a discount this year. He's going to probably be more ranked around the 10th wide receiver level. He's not going to be, top 4 like he was last year. So you might be able to get him at a discount. And if, like with Hilton and if all these guys and Demaryius Thomas, Sanders, if they're better because of their quarterback situation, this could be a lot of wide receivers to choose from, I feel like. Could be very interesting.
Yeah, obviously I'm a big Mike Evans fan, so I completely agree with this. He could have easily made my list. And just to kind of, piggyback on that, actually I wanted to look just to make sure I'm not completely off. But yeah, the year before overall, and I'm not sure if this was a standard scoring or not, but he was ranked number 1 wide receiver. So he definitely fell off. But also, if you look at his numbers, up till week 7, playing 6 games, he had 4 touchdowns. So pretty much he was, a little less than a touchdown a game. And then pretty much Winston got hurt. He had 2 terrible games in a row. And then Mike Evans got suspended. And then obviously he had no Winston for the next 4 games, didn't catch 1 touchdown. Winston comes back, catches 1 touchdown, has another 100-yard game, and then we're in week 17 already. So I think as Winston goes, Mike Evans goes. I think that correlation is just as easy as it gets. So if Winston has a good year, Mike Evans will be a monster. And if Winston gets hurt again, you'll probably have a top 20 guy, but nothing too special. So I really do think that Mike Evans will be a special player next year, just like you.
I sure hope so. So I'm keeping him in our league again. So I need him to be. I need him to be great. I need Odell to come back from injury and be great. I need Jai to bounce back. So I'm counting on a couple of these guys on the list. Jai and Evans. Maybe that's why I put them 1 and 2. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Is that my subconscious just telling me to put them there because they're on my team? Probably. I'm not biased, so no, they're going to be great. But I think that's going to do it for bounce back players. We'll have more episodes next week. We'll come up with breakout players, I think, next week. And then after this, now the Super Bowl will be over, we can start to actually maybe get a feel for free agency. Maybe we'll have an idea what Kirk Cousins is going to do and start getting some of that. It seems like the offseason is going to be coming at us quick this year. It's not going to be much of a break. It's already started. It's not even the Super Bowl yet.
I know. I love that they announced this trade before they could actually make it.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's going to be I don't think it's going to end this year. I think the offseason is going to come at us quick, and it's just going to, no downtime. It's going to be figuring out where the free agents are going right away. So we'll get into all that in the next couple weeks, but we will talk to you guys next time.